Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Property AI Report. This is your weekly digest of all things property and AI, hosted by me, Matt McCallion, and my good friend Matt Goddard. Hey, Matt, how you doing?
Oh, great. It's been an absolute scorcher, hasn't it? From News Week and a Weather Week.
100% nice link like
Yeah,
that.
thank you.
Yes, I've spent most of the time looking out at the sunshine from the confines of my car slash traffic jam. But yes, it looked like it was beautiful out there.
It's been
But
absolutely delightful.
yeah, as you observed when we first came on this week, I'm not as burned as I normally am, so clearly didn't get enough. So we've got an absolute packed show, as Matt says, so much going on again this week. So let's dive into our property news. All right, first up, we've had some news from 20CI in terms of the largest estate agent brands in the UK. And last week it was eXp's national conference here in the UK. And the big announcement from them was that they are now, for the month of, I think it was May and June, or sorry, maybe April and May, they are the largest by sales volume estate agency brand in the country. Now, that is a pretty big milestone, actually, for a business that kind of only came into existence a few years ago. So Adam Day and the team there has done some amazing things. And I think it's a really, really impressive execution from a standing start of what's possible. Really impressive.
Really, it really has grown dramatically, hasn't it? And I was looking at some ex-colleagues from Foxtons who have moved over as Keller Williams has gone quiet in the UK and they've gone on to eXp and they had their big conference last week, didn't they? And they got some quite impressive names speaking at the event. But I think it's 1.31% market share. I think I'm saying that it is. Um,
Well, just, good
but
big guess.
because I rattle off as you go. So to build that up in the course of 5 years, it does feel and similar, and hopefully not tarring them or cursing them with this, but similar to the rate at which Purple Bricks gained market share and grew. And certainly even around here in Southeast London, I'm seeing more and more EXP boards going up, so becoming more prominent.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the model's good for many people. Obviously, you have the freedom to be able to deliver your personal service to whichever geography you really like. You also can have your own brand and things like that. And it's just, as I say, powered by EXP. So there is an argument that actually it's not really their own brand, but it is. So yeah, no, I think it's thoroughly impressive. There are a lot of great agents who have gone to work there as well that I know. I'm sure you do too. And yeah, it's just it seems to fit. They've found a really nice way of fitting the right people into the right role. And just like anything, it's not for everybody, but I think from the perspective of consumers love it because they know that it's somebody local, they know that it's somebody that they can phone up day or night, which again means that it's not necessarily right for everybody. But I think it's yeah, the volumes that they're punching through, the growth levels, they're going to continue to grow, it looks like. And yeah, I think it's going to become an increasing part of the landscape of the property market here in the UK.
No, absolutely. And it's one of those ones where you know who you're dealing with on a because their face is on the board, and so if you bump into them in Sainsbury's or the Boozer on a Friday night, you can pick up your gripes with them. But a similar footing, there was also positive news out of Yopa or Yopa, wasn't there last week?
Yeah, Yopa, Verona Frankish again has done amazing stuff there since she took over a few years ago. And yes, this is an online agent, and Yopa actually stands for Your Online Property Agent. So there we
Oh,
go.
I just
And
thought it was shouting, Yopa! Sorry to anyone who's listening on earbuds.
so yeah, so they've just grown really well. They've got some good numbers in there as well. I know Verona has introduced a new associate model, which is a self-employed version as well under their brand. So it's built itself up again. And if you look at perhaps what's happened with Purple Bricks, and they spent 197 million and then sold for a quid, and they're now offering it for free, they've been bulking the numbers up that way. Whereas Yopa has been steadily accumulating, and I see boards around here in Cambridgeshire, and they're right across the country. So what I like about them, I think, is that they're open and honest about who they are, and they don't try and pretend that they're something they're not. They don't try and pretend they're doing full traditional service estate agency, which you would have been forgiven for believing that Purple Bricks did back in the day, because they were very much, we do the same as traditional agents, but just for 600 quid or whatever. The Oprah is very clear about its product offering, and I think that it's found its niche, and I think it's testament to the work that those guys have done there.
Absolutely.
So that's about the kind of property news on the scalers and how people are building their businesses up. One of the other stories we wanted to cover was about the sort of tech side and how perhaps one of the older names in property technology here in the UK is looking to transform itself through AI, and that's Reapit. And Matt, this is something that you know a lot about, right?
Indeed. And I know it's something that I think a few months back you called out one of the big sort of product releases of not actually having anything on AI in that particular release. And I think a lot of people look, and quite quickly there was almost the table stakes across the industry, wasn't there? Property descriptions as generative, and a number of people did them. And I was maybe a bit glib when people introduced property descriptions within the CRMs, because of the fact that generative AI had been around for a long time at that point. But then there was testimonials from people who, you forget that you've got to copy and paste this from whichever large language model you're creating the content into your CRM. So actually having it in your workflow makes a massive difference. But it's actually really interesting and exciting, to be honest, to see the sort of stuff coming out of Reapit with relation to AI, because as you and I talk about on a regular basis, AI is ultimately powered by the data you've got in the system. And one of the big USPs we had at Reapit historically was the conversions that we ran from previous systems, and we would bring across every single record as much content as we could do. And it was a laborious process, but it was very much the USP. And I remember people like Manning Stainton or Webbers, when we bring those across, you'd be bringing decades of history on property records and journal entries and viewing notes and follow-ups and activity across. And now that's all coming to bear if AI is unleashed on those data sets. I think what was exciting was Matt McGowan, who joined Reapit from Console as the group chief product officer, and Dawson Scott, who's been there since early 2019 as the chief technology officer. Those two sort of different minds coming together, like one from obviously that Australian side of the world, where Matt was very much focused on data, and Dawson very much focused on, I think his priorities, he said, were always data security and trust within the client base. And the fact that Reapit has individually with each client a huge volume of data that people can train their AI on, with use cases brought to them by the product team. That's really where I'm excited to see them start to harness those opportunities. I don't know if it's, the acronym is RAI, so it's Reapit AI, and I don't know if that's Ray or Rye. There is a singer-songwriter at the moment called Ray, isn't there? I don't know if it's following in the tracks of that, but I think in terms of the data that those businesses have got, not just the big corporates or the strong independents, but the people with 2, 3, 4 branches, when they've had conversions from previous systems and worked through, the opportunities that are going to present themselves and the use cases that you can think about from within them, right across from maintenance and credit control, the process of bringing a property onto market, the way you can then start to harness that AI with all that history being used to train your individual AI models is really quite exciting. I'll be interested to keep an eye on this over the coming weeks and months.
I agree with you. I think it's huge. I think the data that estate agents have got that hasn't necessarily seen the light of day, and I think that's really important, because proprietary data, so the information that you have within your estate agency about properties that perhaps somebody got you around for valuation, never came to market, that data that hasn't hit the portals, so isn't freely available and out there, is now essentially yours to train your models and to learn more about the local area, local environment, all this stuff that's going to make you as an estate agency even more, to surface all of your data, all of your knowledge, and help you to really show that you are the local agent of choice. I think it's huge. Yeah, look, make sure you get as much data together, and it's digitized and it's shoved into your CRM system and Reapit.
I think that's the key, isn't it? You were telling an anecdote about Lonres when they started like 25 years ago, and they were literally going into people's filing cabinets and taking photos of the property descriptions and details. And Reapit, as you say, there is one of the industry's maybe stalwarts and been around for a while, but actually having all that converted data from historic systems. I think some of the newer CRMs, when I've talked to people, you bring across just the basic entities of the current listing and the current viewing and the current offer, and leave all the old data behind. And now suddenly those companies are going to be scrambling to think, actually, what we've bridged across might have been a bit too lightweight, and can we get hold of that old data?
But again, you'll know better than I do, but I've always been a little bit suspicious that the CRM system that they're moving away from seems to find it really difficult to give the data across in a really nice, readable format. I don't know if that's just by accident or whatever, but it does seem to be, yes, it seems almost essential that they only get a light data slice when they come across. But I'm sure CRMs out there will put me in my place and tell me that's not the case.
We've certainly had in the Reapit days, we had challenges where the cut of data would change on every one file that got handed over. But there was a camaraderie between CRMs as well. I was talking to Trev, and so on one particular system where it was like, we just want to give you the database and help, because you never know with clients, they may well come back around again. And so that's, whilst it's sad to see a business lose, it's better than leave. Sorry, it's better to do that with a relationship that might help you in the future than muddy the tracks with any other opportunities.
All right, I will stop being cynical and suspicious. But you have convinced me.
I think there definitely are. I know that we talked about before one particular company on the day of go live who turned off the CRM so the client couldn't do their bank reconciliations until that particular client signed another year contract. So there's not everybody plays in the same way, does it?
It's those stories that I hear from agents all the time. But yeah, no, exactly right. So choose your CRM wisely. Okay, so next up, third topic for this week. We're going stateside again. Now, the reason for doing this is because it does have a huge impact or potential huge impact over here as well. So we have spoken before about the fact that Zillow is the market leader out there. There are a number of companies, including CoStar, that owns On the Market over here, owns Homes.com over there in the States, and others. A big company called Compass, who is eXp, where they've got loads of agents working for them. They are trying to wrest control of their data. So we were just touching on how important data can be for you as an agent to manage it and use it as you see fit. Zillow has, as the market leader, has said that if you do not list a property with them within 24 hours of it coming onto the market, and by coming onto the market, that means a signboard going up in the garden. It has to be within 24 hours. If you don't list it on Zillow, sorry, then you are never going to be allowed to list it on Zillow. All right, so it's the equivalent of Rightmove saying you must list it with us instantly, otherwise you will never be able to advertise that property on Move, and you will have to tell your vendor about that. So this is a real example of one of the big portals throwing its weight around, in my view, and basically dictating to agents and also sellers that they have to do what Zillow says. And over in the States, Compass, who is one of the businesses that wants to retain the right not to list directly on Zillow straight away and bow down to Zillow's demands, is suing them in court. And that's actually just come out today, which is Monday, the 23rd of June. For me, that is just, yeah, this is what happens when two big companies go and slug it out over essentially data and in the world of AI.
You called it early, didn't you, with this particular one, that it was going to be a interesting viewing and get the popcorn. And certainly, we've talked before about the fact that there's more to be done, especially with I'm touching on back on the AI, with these large language models scraping and spidering across content and how you can get your own personal brand out there, and Compass getting their brand out there over and above Zillow. You want to be publishing more and more before you stick it on the portals, because then you become that domain authority, and you want to be that first publisher first protocol, the weighting that comes with that, whether it's sticking on your own website, doing email shots that drag people to your website, whether it's the social media advertising that goes alongside that. But Zillow trying to enforce people in the same way that we've seen with REA and Rightmove. REA starting to take the social media spend off people as well. It's going to be not just a short-term battle, this, is it?
100%. Yeah, once the lawyers get involved, this can drag on for ages. But yes, as it stands now, yeah, Zillow is refusing to, from the 30th of June, so there's a week away from now, they are going to deny anybody who's advertised it anywhere else. And it has gone into the 25th hour from actually listing on their big portal over in the States. Yeah, again, I just think that this is the problem with these big monolithic, monopolistic entities that believe that they can and should be able to dictate how agents are able to advertise. And I think it's a cautionary tale, and I wouldn't be surprised if there is some kind of moves over here at some stage should agents find themselves in a similar spot. All right, that is our property news for today. Let us move on to our AI and tech news. All right, starting with a story that didn't quite make it last week because it literally dropped sort of about the day that we were recording. It's about students, UK university students caught cheating far more now using AI than they ever were with previous kind of plagiarism, which was the kind of big stuff in the past. So yes, it's equivalent to 5.1 for every 1,000 students have been using AI. Basically, up from 1.6 the previous year. So and they reckon this year it's going to increase to 7.5 from 5.1. So it's an increasing challenge, I think, for all education establishments to try and understand, particularly where there's coursework, where you go away and you think and you bring stuff back, to spot where AI is involved and where it's actually just a proper test of student knowledge. This is one of the big challenges I think we as a society have got about how this knowledge everywhere, which is what we're going to have, intelligence everywhere, how that is going to impact on our ability to understand, yeah, who's got it and who hasn't.
And it's broader than our podcast, although you and I can take on the world. But there's been a long running debate about the education system anyway, hasn't there? And whether the approach and to both teaching and also exams and coursework, etc., is correct for the modern age. And I think the one massive positive that comes out of this is the fact that traditional plagiarism's on the down. So you don't need to copy
I'm
off
not
Mal
bothered with that
anymore because
anymore.
you've got someone much more intelligent than him sat in your pocket with your mobile phone. But it's
Yeah.
certainly in the same way that we do with business. You can do strategic ideas. You can work out which is your favorite model. Is it O3 to talk through your business plan and your strategy and to
Yeah.
work through that with? It's just making sure that people aren't penalised for this. And we touched on Reapit in the previous section, but the fact that they're doing a lot more, the developers are all using Cursor now to write code. Well, people should be harnessing these things, and it's a case of how are you doing that? As long as you're not leaving the prompts in there and not tidying it up or doing whatever it might be, it's a case of that's going to grow, and it's making sure that people are in the same way that your maths teacher used to say you're never going to have a calculator in your pocket all the time at school, and suddenly you actually have. And
When calculators came out of watches, and everyone was like, "Brilliant, we can
yeah,
cheat these apps." And it's like,
and it looks
"Okay, we can
class.
give
It's a
you one."
Casio silver calculator watch, wasn't it? But we have to move with the times, and it is a new revolution, isn't it? Industrial revolution we're going through, and how do we keep up with that? But I was also, it's as you just said, 5.1 students in every 1,000, so that was lower than I thought, to be honest. That's the
Exactly.
honest ones.
Yeah, exactly. What are the other 995 doing? Seriously, come on, guys. No, my brother works as a secondary school teacher, and he's obviously right across this. He's a computer science teacher. He used to work in the city. And so he's seen like the business side of it and what is going to be needed for kids. So our kids who are growing up right now are going to be using AI in everything to be testing against what they can retain in their brains, much like your calculator analogy, which is great, is almost, yeah, almost spurious. It's like they are going to be able to find the answer to questions everywhere about Shakespeare, about chemistry, about all that stuff. So do they really need to retain it, or do they need to have the skill set to be able to go and find it and understand it and then critique it? Sure, get that kind of critical thinking stuff in, absolutely. But the retention of knowledge and just basic, yeah, memory stuff is really past.
It's a bit like when you were taught history in O levels or GCSEs for those of us who did that and whatever they're called now. But you have your secondary and tertiary evidence, and as you say, you have to be able to understand, challenge it, and then take forward what it is. And actually, it's further down the show notes, but we had that dystopian study that came out that says we're all actually getting dumber as a reflection of using the large language models. And I think it's quite quick that this has come out because I'm not too sure that the grey matter is actually receded enough for us to be able to say, oh yeah, before this in 2023, I was actually really clever. But they are the reasoning and the checks and balances that maybe you would have done. I think again, it's just slowly changing the way our skills are implemented.
It really is. And I think that's a really good word is changing because, yes, already don't feel like I have to retain some knowledge that I would otherwise have tried to memorize. And I'm just like, I know that I can just look that up again. And it takes seconds. But what I'm instead doing is I'm allowing myself, for those who haven't been listening regularly, I'm driving around the country a bit at the
Oh,
moment.
you man.
Yeah, yeah. And on my drives, I go past places and I can literally say, I'm on the A38 going south past this town, and there's a big statue over there. What is it? Who is it? Why is it? And it's just really interesting. And actually you've got this kind of source of knowledge that actually makes you far more connected, in my view, to the places that you're going to see that you may not
I won't bring up my Jodrell Bank satellite again this time. We had enough of that on a previous episode, didn't we? But it certainly is. Even though walking to the gym as I do on the morning, I'm chatting through with ChatGPT, which is my one of choice for the voice at the moment, and pulling the information out, or you might hear something on a news article and want to go deeper on it. It is just that evolution of the way that we work. I think saying that we're all getting dumber is probably is a bit one-sided when you could see actually it's more utilizing the knowledge in a different way.
Yeah, although I have just proved my point that I'm losing my memory because I forgot that I told that story last week.
I
So
subtly pulled you up on that there.
you did, yeah, almost,
What we
yeah.
could do, Mal, because you're waving your arms around, people might be wondering what you've done to your forearm and have you got another tattoo on there? But I've given blood, and that's why you got a patch on your arm there. For those watching on YouTube,
Thanks, mate. Yes, and yes, I could have been doing anything with that. I've had something in my vein on there, but no, it is giving blood, I promise.
that's it. Okay, and then leading on from us all losing our marbles, you underlining that point is actually people at Amazon now worrying about losing their jobs.
Yes, so the Amazon boss, Bezos is number two, has basically told all of their staff that AI is indicates that their jobs are at risk in the coming years. All right. Now, this is not something we haven't covered here. It is clearly going to change our jobs. And I actually put a post out on LinkedIn last week about some of the figure robots that's gone viral, and it's got 30,000 views on it already. And there's a lot of talk in the comments about people's worries about their jobs, automation, all this sort of stuff. And it's true, and it's understandable, and it's not something that we don't feel. But I think that there is just, I think I was talking with somebody about the navigators of the canals or the railroads, the railways being set up right next to them, and thought that's our job's gone. This is a fundamental change in what jobs are going to look like. But that means that there will be other jobs coming along the track as well. Yeah, Amazon is basically looking at its current workforce and its current ways of operating, and that will change. And that will mean that those jobs are not there anymore, or some of them are not there anymore. And I think it's just a shot across the bows to everybody to understand the technology, really dig into it. Yes, you're listening to us, both me and Matt are available to chat about anything you want to chat about, because AI is coming, and AI literacy, again, going back to the education piece we were just talking about, is going to be so important. So you've got to know, because there's a generation coming up behind you that knows this intimately and natively. So yeah, get used to it. It's really helpful. It's really good if used in the right way. So yeah, don't run away from it. Learn it. It's important. I'll just stop my rant there.
On the money. I
Yes.
feel like that probably wraps up our tech news for the week.
You're absolutely right.
Mic drop.
Let us move then on to some of the more fun stuff with our AI tool of the week. All right, this week, MidJourney, which was one of the very first image generators, certainly one of the first things that I started playing around with AI, because it was just like magical to be able to create these images just by typing in what you wanted to see. And it's so funny looking back now at some of the stuff that you did, and you're just like, that is so terrible. But at the time it was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Look at this parrot that's dressed in, I don't know, policeman's uniforms, because you could. Now you can make videos of that parrot dressed in a policeman's uniform, can't you, Matt?
Yes, and it's that evolution again, isn't it? In the same way that I remember speaking to someone maybe even 6 months ago, digressing slightly, but ChatGPT could create images, but the images weren't great with text. And so it's a case of, obviously that all changed in an instant. And MidJourney now was the go-to image generator for a long while, but now it's stepped it up a level with the video generation. But even in the same breath, just off air, we were talking about, yeah, it's great that you can generate videos, but the VO3 from Google does videos and audio. So it's, yeah, you're not done bad there, MidJourney. Creating some amazing videos from these pictures. And for a long time, people were creating the pictures in MidJourney, weren't they? And then copying the images into a video generation and
Runway, something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And kicking them on from there. Whereas MidJourney is now taking us on a journey into generating those videos. And for their efforts, they're getting sued, aren't they?
They are, and it's not just by some little small local outfit. This is by Disney and also by NBC Universal. Yes, Disney are suing them for being able to create Darth Vader, essentially, and NBC Universal are going after them for Shrek. I think particularly, specifically in the court cases, in the court documents, they've actually shown this is what Shrek looks like. This is what MidJourney video makes Shrek look like, and it's basically identical. It's clear that they have been trained, or these machines have been trained on IP, intellectual property, that is owned by Disney and by NBC Universal. So yeah, and MidJourney, interestingly, is one of those smaller outfits, really. Yes, they came on the scene very quickly, and they were really impressive, but they never bulked up with going out and getting billions of investment to almost defend themselves against this stuff. So I do have a slight kind of concern that actually this is such a big sledgehammer coming at a relatively small outfit that it's going to be difficult for them to fight it off. But in the meantime, guys, as our tool of the week, you can go and make some amazing stuff.
Yeah, and it's setting the precedent, isn't it? So suddenly you can't do Universal, you can't do Disney, but you can still create. I don't know why I've thought of this one, but Malcolm in the Middle, for example. You could go off and do those, and then all these other TV shows and production companies will start trying to block those sides. I think MidJourney, because of their size, can get away to an extent of using all that IP and just waiting to be sued. Whereas someone like OpenAI, where they've got the Department of Defense contract this week in America, haven't they? They can't really be seen to be doing things that maybe they shouldn't be doing. Yes, they're getting quite a lot of sued for these things, but it's given us something fantastic to play with in the meantime.
And yes, as you say, the VO3 isn't quite ready for everybody just yet. It's quite expensive as well. So in the meantime, go and hone your video generation, text to video generation skills on MidJourney, because it's really cheap. I think it's $10 a month or something, and it's really good and really fun. All right, listen, that was a really great whistle-stop tour through everything property and AI this week. Thank you, Matt. Really enjoyed that.
Yeah, where are you flying off to this week, Mel?
I've got various locations that include but are not limited to Oxford and Croydon, I think.
Yeah, I thought of those two seats of learning.
Yes, that's right. The glamorous, not to be missed stops in the UK are definitely there. Yeah, no, lots going on. What about you? What are you up to?
We've got Property Academy tomorrow over in Old Streets. We've got I can't remember who the speaker is, but it's a Property Academy today at the Galleria, which is always quite a cool venue to be at. And then I'm up to Leeds on Thursday. Another couple of days up there to finish off the week.
Good stuff. All right, listen, enjoy it. Hope the sunshine holds. Thank you guys for listening in as well. Really appreciate your time as ever. We will be back again next week with even more property and AI news. Till then, have a wonderful time. Enjoy, and see you in a few days' time.
Have a great week, everyone.